The Spurs have dispatched the Blazers. They're moving on to the Western Conference Semis. What did we learn about the team, and who do we want, Denver or Minnesota? Welcome back to another episode of Spurs In Focus right here on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. You also got Pocket Cast, Amazon Podcast. The list goes on. Go subscribe right now. Don't forget about the Substack, Spurs In Focus Substack, completely free. Sign up, click subscribe. You're part of the crew. My name is Jeff Garcia, longtime Spurs writer in San Antonio. And again, thank y'all for making Spurs In Focus your first and only spot for all things San Antonio Spurs. So what are we talking about today? What do we learn about your Silver and Black now that they have taken care of business with the Blazers? They're moving on to the semis. Any good things, any bad things, or stuff they need to just work on? What about individual players? What do we learn about this team? Let's talk about that. And then we're going to ask the big question, Denver or Minnesota? Who do we want? All right, so let's go ahead and bring in our guest. Always looking dapper every time I bring him on, making me look bad. James Pledger with San Antonio Spurs.
Put a hat on. So.
There you go. On X at I Am Pledger, host of Extra Innings on the Star. He's going to brag about that later on. Pledger, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. What's happening?
Oh, man, nothing much, man. Go Spurs, go. That's the vibe right now, man. Seriously, man.
It's been the vibe for a minute.
Yeah, it has been, yeah. Hey, look, the Spurs, they took care of business. They just sent Portland packing for their summer vacation. Spurs are moving on for the West semis. Now, we're still winning their opponent, more on that in a bit. But nevertheless, James, I think we learned a lot about this team. And the first thing I want to start off with is this whole they're not ready, inexperienced thing. They may have to throw it out the window because this team looks like they are clicking on both ends of the court right now. We'll bring up some numbers in a bit. But, James, that's the biggest takeaway for me so far, at least through 5 games, the playoffs, is they are ready to make a big push. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, when they're playing their brand of ball, it's tough to beat. The problem is, and we saw it in the series, they're not always doing that. Yeah. You know, these massive deficits that they would fall into early in this series, the shooting slump at the end of game 2, which ended up costing this being a sweep. Like there are still issues, don't get it twisted, but I mean, they're good enough to be able to battle back from them against a undermanned compared to what the Spurs are, Blazers team. I mean, they were 7th in the Western Conference, so they're not going to get away with that against the Denvers and the Oklahoma Cities. If that's who they end up facing in the next round is Denver. That more on that coming up, but I mean, they can still improve and get better, and their inexperience showed at times, but also their resilience shone through. So it's very important to notate that there are multiple things within this series, a lot of good, but there was some bad and a lot that Mitch can use to teach from. And I think they did a really good job last night of being able to take most of the good and keep it that way. I mean, they jumped out to the early lead. They got in front. They stayed in front. It got within single digits late, but they put their foot back on the gas again. So there are ebbs and flows as there are at every basketball game, but the last game, this closeout game, some of the hardest games to win in the NBA was definitely, I think, their best performance of the postseason and maybe in the last month of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Castle, after the game 5, that is, mentioned how this was perhaps the mature win the Spurs had in game 5. So there's a little bit of that. They're maturing right now. Hey, look, who says you can't do both, right, James? You can get your playoff experience and be mature about it at the same time. And that's what the Spurs are doing right now. One thing I learned about this team, Pledger, is something that is now highlighted even more so because of the stage they're on right now. It doesn't have to be Wemby every freaking night. It doesn't have to be. Could be Tevin. Could be Keldon off the bench. Could be. We saw Dylan Harper lead the team. De'Aaron Fox.
That was a good.
Yeah.
That comeback dunk on Robert Williams was just.
Yeah.
And that chill out the seat, like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think that should make the rest of the West field or the NBA playoff bracket field just like, oh my goodness, it's not really just Wemby. You have to cut off so many heads of the snake. There's not just one. Pledger, your thoughts?
But we've known this for most of the year. They've been without Wemby for large chunks of the year, as evidenced by him barely qualifying for the postseason awards. I mean, they've been without Castle for stretches. They were without Fox to start the year. I mean, they've dealt with injuries outside of Champagne and Keldon. Those are the only two guys that played 82 games this year. So, like, they've dealt with injuries to star players for prolonged periods of time, and they've weathered the storm all year. This is still a team that is yet to lose more than 2 consecutive games all season long. So you have to bunch all of that together. Yes, like the league is finding out about how deep and talented this team is, but here in San Antonio, we've known for quite some time that they've been able to do this, and there wasn't a large amount of fear when Wemby suffered that concussion, because I knew deep down this team's deep enough to be able to handle business. Just get through what you need to get through and get them back for the next series, which, you know, we thought was going to be Denver in a runaway, but that's getting a little bit more in question as we get closer to this series. But I mean, this is a team that has been and is extremely deep. It's been that way all year long, and their depth is on display when you try to it's like the old adage of the cartoon of the players putting their, or the cartoon characters putting their finger in the dam, and then another leak, and then another. You're trying to plug all these holes to take things away from the Spurs, but they just have so many different ways that they can beat you. And a lot of it is due to just how good a job they have done drafting, developing, acquiring the players that fit, acquiring the right mindset of player. And I think Mitch Johnson talked about that last night when he talked about De'Aaron Fox, and he was like, yeah, this is who he's been. He's not always this guy, but like when he needed to step up, he did. And nobody appreciates more what De'Aaron Fox has been able to do, from going to what he was in Sacramento, where he was the dude, and knowing kind of when to throttle it in and out and pick his spots in games to take over, if you will. And I thought that was a huge impact, because I remember we came on this thing after they lost game 2, and I told you I wasn't worried, but I was kind of like, I had De'Aaron Fox on watch alert, because he hadn't been playing well in that series, and it ended up costing him at the end of game 2. There is no doubt in my mind, the last 2 games, De'Aaron Fox is the reason the Spurs won those games.
Yeah, and I'm going to leave him on your screen whenever you're watching on YouTube, and that's my next thing that I learned about this team is do not slander De'Aaron Fox. There was a lot of slander towards him leading into at least the final few games. Yeah, exactly. There was some slander. He's getting paid how much? He's the co-star. We needed you, Fox. Why did you lose that game in San Antonio when it's a team game? But nevertheless, I think that's the thing I learned is that guy, De'Aaron Fox, you're seeing on your screen right now, he is here for a reason. The Spurs wanted him to come. He wanted to come to join this team, pair up with Wemby, and he stepped up. He saved their asses. Let's be honest. He saved their asses in a couple games in this series. If it wasn't for his heroics, the Spurs may be either looking at a tie series or maybe in a bad spot right now. So I think I learned that, again, Wemby is the head of the snake, but they're like, if we're going to make it even more nerdy here, shocker, everybody, this is like King Ghidorah. No, it's Wemby, but then you got Fox on this head, and then you got Castle on this head. And
it's not like the meme. There's not one of those doofy-looking heads.
Yeah, there's no doofy-looking heads on King Ghidorah for the Spurs. Yeah, and Fox is one of them. James, I'm looking at some of the numbers here, and I get it. You know, it's the cup. I understand it's the Blazers, and you know, they're just as inexperienced as the Spurs, and you know, they have the talent. But this is something to learn about this team. So, in the regular season, look at some of the advanced stats here. They were third in the NBA in defensive rating. Through the playoff series with Portland,
Mm-hmm.
They were, by the way, they're at 112 defensive rating in the regular
Yep.
season, but now they're at 104.8. Their defense has gotten better. What about their offense? So again, that's metrics here. At offensive rating in the regular season, fourth in the NBA, 120.2 through 5 games, 117.1. So it dipped a little bit, but again, I like the fact that their attention is more to the defensive end. They're ratcheting up defense because defense wins games, doesn't it, Pledger?
Well, Devin Vassell said it before game 5 the other night. He mentioned, when they get these big offensive swells and coming back from these big deficits that they had the two previous games down, 21 and 19 at different points in those games. And he was asked about their ability to fight back from those. And he said, it starts with the defense. When we're locked in and do what we do, it feeds the other end. And so, yeah, it starts with defense. And I think this team, their defense is a catalyst for their offense. And because when Wemby is altering and they're able to grab the ball off the rim and push it, or when they're able to turn people over and push it, it just sparks them. And it's a lot like anything else. You get into a good mindset, and that leads to a rhythm offensively to where the bucket just gets bigger. And so, yeah, I believe De'Aaron Fox when he says that the defense is the catalyst for their offense, and it is a massive part as to why they're so successful offensively, because you've seen when they go into these droughts, a lot of it is made baskets, coming back, half-court sets. Those are the struggles when they fall into these lulls that they are prone to get into sometimes. And that's a huge part of it. Now, Victor Wembanyama leads to a big reason for some of those lulls because he is the defensive eraser. But at the same time, I mean, they've shown that they can play capable defense even without Wemby. And it is the reason that this team is as good as it is. Yes, the defense is phenomenal, but it sparks the offense to be as good as it can be.
Exactly. Fox, after game 5, even said this, quote, "It was defensive. That's how we won. We think we had them. So we think, they did. Y'all did have them, Fox, for 2 games under 100 points. So yeah, there it is right there, for the Spurs to hold down a Portland Trailblazers team with some offensive potency, obviously Danny Avdija, etc. But to hold them under 100 in today's NBA, that's pretty ridiculous. I want to still stick with the defensive thing that we're talking about right now as far as what do we learn. Let's go to rebounding percentage. Regular season, 52.5, good for 6 in the NBA. During this Blazers series, 52.2. So they're still holding steady there. But get this, though. Their steal percentage just shot up. 8.8% steal percentage in the 5 games. Spurs were actually 25th in the NBA in that category last season. So they're just getting better on the side of the court that needs to be better, which is defense. Now, Pleasure, let's talk about the bad thing that we learned about this team is they got into some deficits, didn't they? They should never have done that twice in Portland. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of being a young team and learning and growing. I mean, they've fallen behind, whether it was overestimating, whether it was Wemby's return and him not being focused early in that first game back in game 4. Like, there have been some shortcomings, especially offensively and defensively, for this team that have led to them calling out of it. Now, the flip side of that is this team has the resilience and the mindset to be able to know lead is safe to battle back from, and that is a good thing and a good mindset to have. But and Devin said it, I want to say like 6 times in his answer, when they lock in, when they lock in and get ready, and that was knowing it was a closeout game and how difficult it was going to be. They didn't want to fall into that early hole. They didn't want to have to battle back. So when they lock in, they are a different beast of a team. And we've seen it at times throughout the year, but it's also a young team that sometimes plays with its boot.
Yeah, we saw that again. We saw that in Portland. the Spurs getting down double figures. You could get away with that maybe versus a Portland team, but you ain't going to get away with that with Denver or Minnesota. Again, more on that in a bit. Pleasure, what else did you learn about this Spurs team through 5 games?
Mitch did a really good job adjusting, and I thought he would. He has made good adjustments throughout the season, but I kind of wanted to see it from the game-to-game and in-game decisions that it took, especially like having to deal without Wemby. And he made some great adjustments throughout this series, and that was really one of the few question marks I had. I mean, I've learned so much about this team throughout the year. It's exactly who I thought it's been for most of the year. Once I realized, wow, this team is ahead of schedule and they're blazing forward, and they've only answered everything since the calendar flipped to 2026 and the rodeo road trip and the one loss and the perfect February. Like, it's all been a lot of flowers given to this team. But there was really one question I had coming into this series, because I knew they were more talented. I knew this was going to be a short series. There were a bunch of things that I knew and that bared out the way the series played out. I knew that throughout the year I wasn't concerned about physicality. This is a team that's handled and dealt with physicality throughout the year and actually responded very well to being played physically against. And I understand playoff basketball is a little bit different brand of physicality, but at the same time, this is a team. The book used to be get physical with them, get physical with Wemby, you disrupt them, and you can force them kind of out of their game. And they've done a really good job responding to those things throughout the year. So that question was kind of answered early for me before the playoff season started. But the one thing I couldn't really know until I saw it was how Mitch would be coaching with his adjustments throughout the course of a series and throughout the course of a game, as these games have way more importance and you're playing the same opponent. So they're also strategizing and trying to make the adjustments that you're adjusting to. So seeing what he did throughout the series, especially when falling behind big, the use of Carter Bryant when Wemby was out and going with that smaller lineup, I mean, A++. He did a fantastic job in his ability to navigate what was a much tougher and more difficult situation than it should have been in the first round with Portland.
Yeah, exactly. And he took the onus on himself in that loss where he said, hey, I think I mismanaged these guys' minutes as far as gassing them out. So he was really smart about that. In the next game, there was a point, I think it was in game 3, where I didn't see Castle at all for like a good chunk of the second half, and hit me as like, oh, where's Castle? Did he get hurt? And maybe I missed something. I go check. No. And then next thing you know, I see him walking about, and he came in and he was kind of like their closer.
But he's fully gassed up.
Yeah. He went from probably no gas to gassed up, and he closed out that game for Portland. Yeah.
He and Harper were the stars of that game along with Fox.
Absolutely.
Like that backcourt just went crazy in game 3.
Yeah, exactly. And they said that it's not going to work, everybody. They said it was not going to work, but here we are. He is James Pledger with San Antonio Sports Star. He's on X at I Am Pledger. Following him right now, host of Extra Innings. We're going to take a short break. When we get back, Denver or Minnesota, who do you want?
As the new leader of the Decepticons, I command you to subscribe to Spurs in Focus.
I gotta ask you, Pledger. Why does Starscream think he's still the guy for the team? He's not.
I don't know. Also, it was cool seeing Super Saiyan Blue Goku try and blank out Broly as Vegeta throws it.
I had that queued up for you, man. I said, oh, Pledger's coming on. I got to get a DVZ thing here. He is Mr. James Pledger with San Antonio Sports Star. He's on X at I Am Pledger, host of Extra Innings, 94.1. He's going to talk about that later on. Hey, the Spurs are on a holding pattern as they wait to see if they're going to face the Denver Nuggets or the Minnesota Timberwolves. That series is still going on. Okay, Pledger, who do you want? What's the better matchup? Or is this team that good it doesn't matter? Bring whoever on.
It shouldn't matter, but you always want an path of least resistance, if you will. Everybody can lie and say, I want to face all the best teams. That's what playoff basketball is about. No, sometimes you get lucky on the way to a title. And being a Minnesota team, the problem is I don't think Minnesota can anymore with the way that the injury bug has hit them. No Anthony Edwards, no Dante DiVincenzo. I just don't think they have the horses. The good news is they're going back to Minnesota. If they're going to steal one, it has to be this one to close it out and move on. But at least who do I want? I want a shorthanded Minnesota. Who do I think they're getting? I think they're getting a full power Denver. But the problem is Denver haven't looked great in this series. Part of that's matchups. But also part of it is the fact that, it's going to be a 7-game series now. They're going to Spurs are going to get tons of rest. Denver's going to be, battling through a tough playoff series all the way to the bitter end, and that's the only way that they can advance. So you hope Minnesota can steal one more. That way you kind of have, I don't want to call it a layup, but you've got the easier path to facing Oklahoma City, I would think. But and look, anything can happen in the playoffs, right? And injuries can strike any team at any time, and it completely changes the complexity of a series, which is what's happening in this Minnesota-Denver series. But I think you're going to end up facing Denver. I think this thing goes 7, and then luckily you'll have a very rested and ready with a team that had 0 players on its injury report going into that game 5 and walked away clean from it. So, I mean, you can't ask for a better way to have to face Denver going into the second round. And Denver has given the Spurs issues throughout the year. So you can't deny, the issues that's been at hand with how they've done it. But, I mean, if you're going to face either one of these teams, you're facing kind of the best version for San Antonio you can. Either a team that took it 7 to the max either way, or a short-handed Timberwolves team. Yeah. So if Minnesota happens to steal one, they're not going to have Anthony Edwards, obviously, for the first part of that series. They've already lost Dante DiVincenzo, and you're relying on Julius Randle to be your number 1 scoring option. So it definitely changes the complexity of that series if they're able to close it out in Minnesota or somehow steal a game 7 on the road shorthanded. If you're facing Denver, they're full strength, they're full power. Aaron Gordon's a little bit of a question mark, I think, but he's also kind of the X factor for them. So at least against the Spurs, he has been. But you're facing a team that, you don't know what the health status of one of their X factors is, and they just played a 7-game brutally long series and are coming in against a fresh, well-rested team. How well do those legs hold up on the other end for them against a team that is chomping at the bit and ready? So no matter who you end up facing, it's kind of a best-case scenario for them in that sense. But obviously, if you're giving me my pick, I want Minnesota because it is going to be it. I mean, it's like, hey, who do you want? The Spurs without Wemby or the Blazers?
Yeah. It makes total sense. Yeah, I'm pushing for Minnesota.
Or do you want the Spurs without Wemby or a fully functioning Oklahoma City team?
Pick your poison. But nevertheless, I'm with you. I think I would love to see the Minnesota Timberwolves advance. Yes, look, as James mentioned, you need a little luck. It happens. And
there are multiple ways to win a title, and nobody remembers how you won it at the end of the day.
As he mentioned, Dante's not there with them, and Edwards is banged up, although the Wolves did not say he's out for the season. They said he'd be out for weeks. If y'all were listening to a recent episode here at Spurs In Focus, we brought in Dr. Ryan McCorkle, and he, on his medical opinion, he felt that, no, it's probably take about a week for Ant to come back. So
Yeah, I figured he missed the beginning of the Spurs series if they were to advance. Like,
exactly.
he would come back probably somewhere around game 4-ish, I would imagine. So
For sure.
you have to weather an early storm or try and build an early lead and then try and close it out late when they're at full strength. But I mean, my initial thought process when I heard 1 to 2 week, or 1 to 2, 2 to 3, forget exactly what the initial diagnosis from Shams was, but once I heard bone bruise and hyperextension, I was like, okay, this is going to be multiple things. And the earliest you can come back would kind of be halfway through the next series if they were to advance. But that's a big if right now. Even though they hold a 3-2 lead now, had a 3-1 lead, that is a huge ask now.
Yeah, absolutely. And and as great as the Spurs were after the All-Star break, and as you mentioned, the undefeated in the month of February, and then those amazing winning streaks they had, there was one team that gave the Spurs the most losses in the second half of the season. That was your Denver Nuggets. It was the Denver Nuggets that did it. So, yeah, Denver is the one team I dread if the Spurs draw them. Because that's championship experience. That's Joker, who's Wemby's had openly admitted, saying that's probably one of the few guys that gives him trouble on the court.
You can't go from 19 and 21 to a team like that.
Yeah. You're down at halftime, double figures. Guess what? You're probably not going to recover versus Denver.
I mean, you should recover. I don't think this is like a 12 to 11 point lead, something like that. Yeah. But you definitely can't get into those like 20-something point deficits against a team like Denver or Oklahoma City, for that matter, if you plan on winning an NBA title, because that's just inexcusable for a team that is as talented as the Spurs are.
Yeah, you're playing with fire if you're going to be doing that shenanigans versus any of those teams down the road, crossing fingers. But yeah, Denver is a team that no. And of course, Aaron Gordon is like Aaron Gordon of the Magic. Whenever time he plays the Spurs, go figure. So, and
he just knows how to pick his spots. He's the ultimate X factor for a team. He is, and we look at him in a different way in San Antonio, but he's very Steph Castle-like. I don't think he gets the recognition across the league outside of from the players within the league themselves. I don't think he's as known as a commodity, but his impact is felt everywhere, even if he's not scoring 20-something points.
Right. Well, we shall see. So I think Pleasure and I, we are on record. We want Minnesota. Go Wolves, go. As the Spurs sit back and relax and wait for their support.
Lucky.
Yes, exactly. But we got to hear from you. What do you think about the Minnesota-Denver thing?
I thought you meant Zan. It was like, I just told you everything.
No. It's for you guys, the audience. And then give us your thoughts on what you learned about the Spurs through 5 games of the opening round series versus Portland. Jamie, do we have time to get nerdy with you?
Sure.
I can hear that little nerdy face emoji guy actually screaming that out loud. I played that graphic there. So, Pleasure, I caught up. I'm not finished. I caught up with all the episodes of Mall Shadow.
Oh,
yeah. So far, very, very good. It's
great story.
It's a great story about his rise in the underworld and et cetera, et cetera. But I did have an issue. So they introduced the Inquisitors to the Mall series. Now, the Inquisitors, they're not full-on Jedi. Well, I guess they could be, but
I mean, the Inquisitors were still a thing, though, in the Rebel series when he was there.
Yep. Well, my point is if these Inquisitors are not full-fledged Sith Lords, they're just like, we'll teach you a little bit, but we're not going to get you there. I had an issue that Maul struggled against them, and he actually was worried about fighting them. And
I mean, the Inquisitors were some of the top lieutenants, if you will, for Darth Vader. I mean, they were. You can have issues that he struggled, and that's a difficult thing about Darth Maul is the power scaling with him and how it varies just up and down. But I mean, while they were no threat ever to Darth Vader, they were the tools that he used to hunt down Jedi. So let's not act like the Inquisitors weren't strong in the Force in any sense of the way or well trained. Maul is just running through the underground. And, I don't know how much training he does to hone his skills as he's doing it, while I imagine the Inquisitors are doing nothing but training because they're the Jedi hunters. They're the killers of the Force sensitives. So there's a reason they were so feared, not just by, other Jedi, that they were hunting people, that like the galaxy itself. Like, you have to power scale up when it comes to the Inquisitors, but like we saw in the Obi-Wan series too, while they were strong, Darth Vader would play with them. He toured with them.
I still think that one Inquisitor, what was her name, Revan? The set of blank that she had on her to try to go up against Vader in that series. And you're right.
He didn't even pull out his lightsaber.
No, he was just like, whatever. I mean,
that was cold.
Yeah, that was so cool. But again, I was watching Maul, and he finally meets up and goes one-on-one with an Inquisitor, and you can see he's like, okay, this ain't gonna be easy. But what I guess what bothered me was he was trained by the guy, freaking Palpatine. He was trained by him.
So was Dooku, who died. So was Maul. And remember, I don't think Darth Maul was ever technically a Sith Lord or apprentice. He was a Sith assassin.
Gotcha. Yeah.
If I remember correctly from the prequels. Like, everybody assume, because of the red lightsaber, just like the Inquisitors, you assume, they are the apprentice, but there can only be two on the dark side. A master and an apprentice, no more, no less. Everything else is just a weapon that they use. And that's the Inquisitors. That was the Sith assassins. That was the different things, but they were never truly taught the dark side of the Force in any meaningful way.
Right.
You had to become an apprentice to get that. So while he was under Palpatine, I'm not sure Palpatine ever actually taught him anything.
Yeah.
Of substance,
For those of y'all who have seen the series, he's caught up so far. There is a pretty cool scene where they show him and Palp back in the day. So you should definitely check that out. All right. That's Getting Nerdy with you right here on Spurs in Focus. Pleasure. We're talking about the Sports Star 94.1. I know you guys are busy over there. Can the fans keep up? Can you meet the demand? Can you guys do that? Pleasure.
We will try every day to bring you 7 hours of solid local content with some Rich Eisen sprinkled in the middle, with the Morning Huddle with Rob and AJ, and then of course the Blitz, which I produce with Jason and Joe, and then my show Extra Innings with Pleasure. We're going to be all over this Spurs run, from honking and fireworks down military to and commerce to the hopeful eventual raising of a banner that leads to and I didn't promise anything. I said hopeful. But this is a team that has that kind of demeanor to it, and it's very impressive. Plus, OTAs, training camps, mini camps, all that's getting started in the NFL. We got the NFL schedule release coming up here in a couple of weeks, I think. So we'll find out who's playing where, when, and then it is straight on into the NBA offseason and football season again, because it just doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop. I can't believe we're already at OTAs already. My goodness. We're there already. It's just crazy.
It's amazing.
It feels like yesterday we was on. Yeah, it feels like yesterday we were talking about the halftime show of Super Bowl.
Like, it's amazing how the sports calendar is so perfectly spread out to where it just doesn't seem to ever stop. And it makes the years go by faster and faster. And I think it's just because of how locked into all this stuff we get.
Absolutely. He is James Pleasure, 94.1.
Or in focus, you could say.
Let me see what you did that there. Pleasure, my man. Thank you for topping on here at Spurs In Focus. Don't forget, follow him on X at IamPledger, 94.1, San Antonio Sports Star. Best way to do it is just go on YouTube, watch them all freaking day, and interact with them, too. They have a live chat as well. You can leave your messages, Pledger, or somebody at the crew will bring them up. Again, Pledger, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Everybody else, thank you all for making Spurs In Focus your first and only spot for all things San Antonio Spurs. Do not go anywhere else. Come here, first and only spot for silver and black stuff and news and playoff good stuff. Substack, Spurs In Focus Substack, completely free. Subscribe. You are part of the crew. We'll be back tomorrow as the Spurs playoff march continues. So for Mr. James Pledger, I am Jeff Garcia. Now you're in focus with Spurs In Focus. I was waiting for you to do that, Pledger.